If you're not watching us live on YouTube, you're missing a lot. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and become a night dreamer. Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the Strange News. Something strange was witnessed by hundreds of people over the waters of Lake Michigan back on March 8th, 1994. The incident, which to this day remains one of the most intriguing mass UFO sightings in history, was reported by witnesses along some 200 miles of Lake Michigan shoreline. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. Once again, it's Gary Anderson coming to you live. He is live, right? Okay. Live from the Night Dreams Talk Radio studios, just in time for ET UFO Month. And you know what that means.
We're expecting to get some very interesting news about the possibility that relics from extraterrestrial technological civilizations might be near us.
And you know Gary and his pals are going to make sure the hidden gets revealed. That's how this current quest got started.
When a few multi-billionaires came to the porch of my home and gave me a few $1 million, and whatever we find we'll reveal. It will be open data. It will not be secret.
Sure, because you know when Mr. Anderson's involved, nothing stays secret.
It makes no sense to prevent it from being known to all humans, because eventually,
without question, thanks to Gary,
people will learn about it.
So now, get ready to blast off and know the unknown with your host, the one, the only, Gary Anderson.
And that is me. At least tonight I am. I don't know about tomorrow. JC, you know the weather here has been in the 80s and 90s. Well, tomorrow it's going to be in the lower 70s and rain starting Sunday, and the temperatures back down to the 60s.
Listen, yesterday morning it was 35 here, Gary, and by, I don't know, 3 o'clock it was nearly 80. Okay, so it's ridiculous here. It's frost in the morning and sunburn in the evening.
Well, since you have a memory like you wouldn't believe people, he has a memory that he can remember virtually everything. He can even remember what year he was born in. But well, JC, you don't want to tell people because you don't want everybody to know how old you are. But, even if you're going to be getting Medicaid very shortly. Anyway, what is the oldest burning continuous fire going on Earth?
The oldest continuing burning fire?
A burning flame. It's been going nonstop.
Well, I know two of them. One's in Pennsylvania, and the other one is the soldier there.
Well, the one is in Australia, in New South Wales. It's been burning in the coal mines underground for 6,000 years.
Oh, yeah, that's longer than the one I was thinking of in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, how long has the one in Pennsylvania been going for?
Well, there's two of them. There's one that's, what's the town? Allen? I can't think. Anyway, there's one that's a coal mine that they abandoned the whole town in 1980. It's been burning since 1980, and they say it could burn for, like you just said, 1,000 some years. But there's another one that's burning. It's coming from underground too, and it's actual flame by like a spring. And they don't know how long that one's been burning, but it's been burning for a long time.
Well, up here, where they've been taking and burying garbage for years in the dump. Years ago they had to put these vents on it and like a lighter, and it's continuously going.
Yeah.
They said it's enough methane gas to keep burning for over 1,000 years.
Oh, probably. Our dump here, which covers, 3-4 counties, it's a mountain. It looks like a mountain, but underneath is a garbage. It's really a mountain of garbage, and they've got, like you just said, vents on the top of it. It's a continuous burning flame. It's like just shoots out. It's amazing.
I have never heard of a dump that takes over 3 counties. You mean it covers 3 counties for people dumping?
Yeah, they collect from like 3 different counties.
Well, I don't know. Somebody could have said, oh, wow, there is a dump. It's like 3 counties large.
Yeah, that'd be a big dump, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, that'd be a dump I wouldn't want to go to. But, again, how come there is so much reports lately on UFO activity? It's really picked up again. I mean, in the last couple of weeks, there was one in the news today. A guy filmed it the size of a car.
Yeah, boy, it has spiked, and there's a lot of weird ones, different shaped ones, and out of nowhere, I'll tell you what. And you know what? Our guest has seen some weird ones too throughout the years.
Oh yeah, but just think of maybe it was a flying car.
Maybe it's that Tesla.
Well, Teslas, I'm not going to say anything about it. My daughter bought a brand new one a year and a half ago, and I told her, don't buy it. Well, she's already had a battery malfunction.
Oh.
And they worked a deal out with her and her husband, $13,000.
So really, they bought the battery and kind of everything else goes around it.
Yeah, well, basically, when the battery fails, it's a throwaway car. A lot of these, not just that brand, but I mean any of them.
Yeah.
When you go buy one of those cars, and batteries can fail at any time, and they don't put a long warranty on the batteries. So you go out and dump $50,000 for a car, $30,000 for a car. Well, you can't buy a car for 30 anymore. And and then the battery goes out after the warranty.
Yeah, right. And here's the other thing that they're saying is supposed to be better on the car or the for the earth and everything, but them batteries got some really serious chemicals in them, Gary, as you know.
Oh yeah. Well, again, they thought, we're going to save all this money on gas. Okay, and they did. I mean, it only cost them a few dollars a week to charge it. Mm-hmm. But then if you figure out if they would have bought a car that used gas in it, they still would have saved a lot of money. I mean, in a year and a half time, how many people burned through $13,000 worth of gas?
Well, that's the thing. It's like a smoke and pony show because, it's a battery, so we're saving a lot on gas. But in the long run, once you figure out, like you just said, you're buying, 2-3 cars and how many year period that you still have the one that's using gas.
Yeah, and you're right. Now, we got to go live with the radio stations. So everybody, you get to hear the intro again. But remember, it's free.
It is time here on Night Dreams Talk Radio for the big guy.
This man is no slouch, and he is no crank or strange or in any way.
Well, no, it's not like he's from outer space.
Our ancestors came from outer space.
And that's why we need Gary A. to help us follow this.
They followed them to the moon, and they followed them landing there on the moon.
Yeah, this is entertainment, the Gary A. way.
Every single mission of NASA, starting from Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, every single one was escorted, and every single one the astronauts saw extraterrestrial craft.
Well, anything else?
And on some occasion, it was even piped music into our spacecraft, and they could listen to that.
Okay, well, I have a better idea of who to listen to. Come on, let's have some real fun with the one, the only, he's no phony, the big guy, Gary A.
Hey, I'm back again. Here we are. But you know what? I was reading in the news, the crazy news. The weather has been hot, and there's a lake around here called Snake Lake. And a bunch of guys and gals decided to go skinny dipping. Now, can you imagine why it's called Snake Lake?
I got a couple theories run by my head there with the skinny dipping and snake.
Well, one of the guys had to go to the emergency room to get a snake off his penis.
Oh, no, I'm having flashbacks of the Florida restroom scenario, Gary.
Yeah, I know. Can you imagine that? You're out skinny dipping, right? And probably romantic with your girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever, right? And all of a sudden a snake. Oh, look at that. That's a fish.
Yeah, or he's thinking his girlfriend's getting frisky and you realize, oh, no, that is not my girlfriend. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's do the strange news, and then we're going to bring our guest on. Again, check our website out. It's been updated. It's going to be updated again tomorrow to cover all the guests to the end of the month and then into after my vacation. So, you'll be well aware of all the great guests we bring on.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with The Strange News. Officially sanctioned treasure hunt finds no hidden Nazi loot in Dutch village. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com.
And we are back, and somebody just made a donation, which I'm going to be honest with you, radio should be free. I do appreciate it because it does help, pay for like JC. But JC, who just made the donation?
That is Truth, SLA, Natural Law.
Okay. Well, I want to thank them very much for making the donation.
Yes, thank you so much. And here, 50 years later, he is still an active, in-the-field researcher, ufologist, and he has traveled to 16 countries and 50 cities and is still going today.
Well, Rob, welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing just great, Gary, and appreciate you having me back on again.
Well, I'm glad to have you on. Can you get that microphone just a hair closer to your mouth? Or just a hair?
Okay.
Yeah.
How's that? I'm hearing a little bit of feedback.
Well, blame that on what I ate last night as gas. No, anyway, you were 12 years old and you had your first experience of a UFO. What were you doing? Where were you at? And what effect did it have on you?
Well, I was in Scouts, and I think we talked about this last time, but just doing Scouts on a Monday night. And my mom said, when you're done, go outside, and I'll be along in about 15 minutes. Call me from the church phone there. So I called her. I go outside, and this is Sarnia, Ontario, Canada. It's right across the river from Port Huron, Michigan, USA. And as I went out the door, there was these kids that were standing in the street there. Young kids, and of course we would never let kids that age be out in the street at night these days, but they said, hey mister, there's a helicopter up in the sky. And they were young enough that they thought I was a mister with my scout hat and shiny shoes and shorts and belt and tie and all that. And I look up and I thought, that's not a helicopter. I didn't see any blades turning. I didn't hear any sound. I just saw this bright light. And this bright light was going back and forth from the north to the south, Gary. And every time it changed directions, it got lower. And it wasn't long and the kids were gone. I didn't actually see them leave, but they were gone. And I would say this thing was up at about 900 feet. And as it got lower, I could see it almost looked like that light was almost like a lens in the bottom of this circular thing. And what really got the hair up on my arms was that I could see figures moving. I could see things moving almost behind this light. And I'm thinking, how does this work? What is this? Is this one of ours? Is it an actual, extraterrestrial craft? And it was during 1966 when they were having that big flap in Michigan. And it kind of spilled over into Canada, and there were sightings all the time. It was in the newspapers, and it came down to maybe about 600 feet, and as it changed direction, it was in a split second. Like if you blinked your eye, it was going in the other direction, a blink of an eye later. And I thought, anything I know has to come to a stop, or at least go in an arc to go back in this other direction. And this was just changing directions instantaneously. And I thought, how is that possible, physics wise? And is it something we have from, some kind of a government project or whatever? And anyway, just then, my mom arrived, and I'm trying to get her to look out and see this, get out of the car and see it. And by the time we finished sort of sparring over this, 20 seconds later, she gets out of the car and looks up. There's nothing there. And I thought, great. She's going to think I imagined all this. And anyway, to make a long story short, the next day after school, when I got home, my mom was all excited, and she had the newspaper open, the local paper, the Sarnia Observer. I still got the article today. And it was all over the front page of the newspaper. It was into the second page. And it talked about how they had scrambled 2 jets from the Selfridge Air Force Base, just south of Port Huron, Michigan there. And they took off after this thing, and it left them in the dust, gone. They had interviewed the different people at the Selfridge Air Force Base, and the interesting thing was, my mom told me all this, and I remember it all to this day. But, just a few years ago when my younger son and I went back to the library in Sarnia to go through the microfilms or microfiches of the articles, they had the front page of the newspaper, they had the third page, and all the rest of the pages, including all advertising, microfilmed, but there was no second page. And that's where they got into the juicy stories of interviewing the people from Selfridge Air Force Base. They had names and everything, and they described how they, could not catch this thing. It just took off. And I remember that I talked to the librarian. I said, there's page 2 missing. And she says, well, we have this newspaper in different archives around the country. Do you want me to call a couple of them and see if maybe they have page 2? She actually called every one of them for me, and every single archive in the different cities was missing page 2. I don't want to start a conspiracy theory, but that's how they start right there.
Well, something was strange there that it disappeared.
Yeah, so maybe there was some higher ups that said lose the second page. So I don't know, and I always wondered what that was. I just didn't know. And a couple weeks later, a good friend from across the street and I, we climbed up the antenna. It's one of those, ones with all the X's on that you can literally climb up. And it was a 1-floor home with a fairly, not a steep roof, but more shallower slope sort of thing. And we went up there with our blankets, pillows, and walkie-talkies, tape recorders, telescope, you name it, pad of paper and pencil. We had our whole sky watching kit with us. And, it was in the April time frame, I guess, 1966, and it was a little bit cool up there. After about 20 minutes, we were kind of finished every chit-chat thing we were talking about. And I said to my friend, I don't think we're going to see, I was about to say see anything, and when I said the word see, there was hundreds of lights that came from the north horizon. Like, up on the roof, we could kind of see over the trees right to the horizon, and out over sort of, Lake Huron and so on. And hundreds of lights just came screaming across the sky, right across, which seemed like in the heavens, all the way across in about a second and a half, all the way to the south horizon.
Now, I got to ask you a question, Rob. When you guys saw that, when I was 12 years old, me and my friends, if we would have seen that, I guarantee we would have been running around on the roof, probably falling off the roof and screaming really loud. Did you do any of that?
Well, honestly, we were a little bit in shock. Like, we could hardly talk. I remember it was like I had a big frog in my throat, and I was kind of trying to talk to him, and I said, did you see that? Like, it's almost like our voices were frozen out of I don't know what. And he said, yeah, and what is it? And I don't know. It's almost like we were whispering really loud. And just we finished talking, and literally 30 seconds after that happened, the whole works of this flotilla came back from the south horizon all the way to the north, literally again at a second and a half or 2 seconds. And we were so excited about what we saw. We went climbing down the antenna. We went running across to his place right across the street where my folks were having coffee with his folks. And we were, we were all excited to tell him about this, especially since my mom was with me when I had the other sighting. And she was the one that brought it to my attention in the newspaper. She was there, and they wouldn't have anything to hear about it. Like, they weren't interested. So, dejected, we headed back to my place, and we just turned on the TV and watched Star Trek, and that was it.
Well, you have to understand how parents are. They probably looked at it like you guys were imagining it. That's how parents are, especially when you have young kids. They even if you do see something, you go tell your parents. I've heard this so many times from people being interviewed, and they told me, I went and told my parents about this ET or about a UFO or whatever. And they go, because they don't want to believe it.
Well, yeah. And, I found that, many people are like this, Gary. And until they've actually experienced it themselves, it doesn't really mean anything. I mean, look at the stories that you've told and what you've experienced. You're so excited about that. But unless other people actually go out in the field with experiencers, have experiences, it doesn't mean anything to them. It's just this intellectual talk. You've got to see and experience this stuff for yourself to really believe. And I won't even say believe. I would say know. It's like, what's a believer? A believer is somebody who's believes something that may or may not be true, and they're kind of going out on faith. A knower, like you and me and Marcus, who goes with me, we know what we've seen, we know what we've experienced. So we're, forget the believers. Believers can believe whatever they want. Be a knower. Go out there and experience and be an absolute knower that this is true.
Well, what makes ufology bad is a lot of people, and I say this all the time, write books on UFOs, right? Like they come out of the ocean, they do this or they do that, right? But they never experience one. And what is really bad is a lot of these books, you read them, because I'm compulsive when it comes out, anything on UFOs, I read it. And you start looking at it, well, God, this sounds familiar. And it bugs me enough where it'll take me a couple of days to trace it down. It was in another book 20 years ago. What a lot of people are doing is they're reading books, watching documentaries, and they became an expert. Now, they're expert ufologists.
Well, it's true. It's like an armchair expert in anything else. I mean, they have all the knowledge about every historical event around ufology that's happened, but they've never seen one for themselves. So, we've invited many of these guys to go out with us in the field. And it's like, balance yourself out. That's great to know all this stuff, but, go out with experiencers, travel around the world. Just go somewhere where it's dark, even, maybe an hour from your own city, and just put the intention out there, and you will be surprised what you will see and what you will experience. It's pretty incredible.
Well, I still think about the mid-'70s up in the desert of New Mexico on the freeway or the road coming back from North Carolina to Seattle, and my encounter with my wife at the time. And I tell you, it really shook me up. And, when I really think about it, even to this day, it really shakes me up because it was there. I felt it. I saw the bright light. I didn't hear any sound. And then poof, it was gone. And
well, Gary, it was real for you. It was real for your wife. And nobody can take this away from you. And
no, but they could have taken her away from me. That would have saved me a divorce.
I hear you.
Yeah. Well, when you experience something like this, then you open up your mind to know that there's more than what life is on this planet.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Marcus and I have traveled to all these countries, and we've met people all over the world and experiencers, and we experienced a lot of different things. And, when you come back to your own town and you sort of get back to normal life, it's like, that's actually not normal. That's not what the real world is all about. There's so much more that you can experience that most people have no clue about, Gary. They really don't. They just don't.
Well, a lot of people are honestly naive. You know how many people that I've talked to that don't believe that there's life off-world, that they are so naive. They only think that this planet is the only planet who has evolved as far as we have. And I tell you, I feel sorry for those people. I really do.
Yeah, and I think maybe where that comes from is they just don't want to open their mind to anything else, because if they do, they might actually have to change how they think and feel about things. And a lot of people don't want to do that. They're very comfortable in their own little space, and anything that rattles that makes them nervous.
Now, I got to ask you a question. I ask this of all guests that are involved in ufology. Do you think that these visitors, are they all lovable? Or is there a mix where we could have a warrior race and people are being taken?
Yeah, I guess, with Marcus and I in our travels, we can only really talk about our own experiences. We can, I guess, you can project with beliefs and so on. And I say there might be. We haven't come across that ourselves. All experiences that we've had have been positive. And I don't know, Gary, if sometimes maybe people attract the negative side, if there is a negative side, and we're more positive and upbeat, and everything we seem to attract or get involved with is a pleasant experience. We've never had a bad experience around this phenomenon. It's not to say that it may not exist. I mean, I've read the books too, and I've watched the guests and on TV and listened on podcasts, and people claim this. And there may be many people listening right now that have real experiences with it, but I myself can't speak to that.
Do you think that people are being abducted?
We've interviewed a lot of people ourselves, and we interview people who claim they've been abducted, and they believe it, and they seem to be sincere. I don't know if I've been abducted. I know that I may have had some missing time. I know that one time we stayed at a friend's house in Toronto, Ontario, and it was sort of an old mansion, and the friends went out for the evening. I didn't feel like going out, and I remember waking up in the bed, and I was looking across the window, and there was a figure on this side of the sort of the sheer drapes there, the sheer curtains. And honestly, at that time, whether it was an ET never even crossed my mind. I would have been in my 20s maybe at that time. And the only thing that crossed my mind was that somebody had broken into the house. And I thought, oh my God, what if they have a gun and they're going to shoot me? So I kind of was paralyzed with fear. I just looked sort of like through a slit of my eyes, and I watched, and this thing didn't seem to move, but it was in front of the curtain, in front of the shears, and you had the street light sort of lighting up the shears behind. And I thought, if I just remain perfectly still, whoever this is will think that I'm asleep, and all this will go away. And the next thing I knew it was several hours later, and I'm looking, and there's nobody, there was no figure in front of the sheer drapes. So was that an ET? Was I abducted? I don't know. There seemed to be missing time. I don't have anything more to say around that experience. Many people have said, well, why don't you go to one of these, psychotherapy people that can sort of regress you back and see if something happened. And, maybe one day I'll get some courage and do that.
I don't know. I'm really against that, because a lot of people who are not trained or certified that do it. And, again, if you're not with somebody who's certified and knows what they're doing, they can actually put those thoughts in your mind. So now afterwards that you've been, hypnotized, right? And you're being, whatever. And now all of a sudden in your mind, you start remembering things that maybe was implanted to you by the person that put you under.
Well, that's very true. And that is a risk. And I guess, I've had no desire to do this, but now that I've heard that, I guess, if I felt any desire in the future, I would want to seek out an accredited person with a top-notch reputation around this. But it doesn't seem to interest me that much. We're more interested in going out and getting real-time experiences in the here and now and going forward. I'm not a big fan of going back and looking at anything, even dealing with past things that might not be so pleasant. For example, my stepbrother has a saying. He says, Rob, digging up old memories that are not pleasant are like dog poop on the lawn. He said, it's sitting there for months, it's all dried up. He says you start poking at it with a stick and it starts to smell again. So, I'm really not one for going back and digging stuff up. I'm a guy that likes to move forward and experience in the here and now and pack as much stuff into my life as I can on a going forward basis. I'm not one to look over my shoulder or regret anything. Life is short. Go out there and experience. And, now that I've had these experiences as a kid And, going out these days, Marcus and I look forward to these expeditions. He's already down in Colombia right now, Bogota, doing interviews with people and setting up field investigations and with experiences and so on. And I'm heading down on Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
We're down there for a couple weeks, and I'll have all the equipment there. And we're so excited. We're hearing stories of all kinds of events and things that have happened with ETs and craft, and we're so looking forward to getting out in the field with these people. There's something about when you hook up with people who are legitimate experiencers, the magic begins, Gary.
It does. How many different countries have you and Marcus been to so far?
Well, I believe we're at 16, and by the time summer and fall are over, we've got something like another 4 to go to, and I don't know. I've almost lost track. We just, I would do this 24 hours a day if I could, but of course you've got to pay the bills. Of course you've got to deal in the reality of your everyday life back home. But we just love doing this. Honestly, there's nothing more better that I would want to do than what we're doing. Absolutely.
What country and culture did you find the most rich for getting information about this?
Yes, I would say the one that comes to mind most is Peru. We interviewed one of the guys that was in charge of the UFO stuff for the government, and we had him to the condo we were renting when we were down there in Lima, Peru, and he was just telling us everything. And I remember I could feel my face getting a little red because I thought, this is not normal. Here's a government guy that's just singing like a bird. And even Marcus said, excuse me, sir, why are you telling us all these secrets? Stuff that's really tightly held in North America, United States, Canada, Australia, Europe, and places. And he responds back and he says, well, why wouldn't I tell you? And that kind of, caught us off guard. And it's like, he's right. That culture down there is very open. Many people are connected to the indigenous people, and the indigenous people have been experiencing this stuff for centuries. And they talk about it. They pass the stories down in their families. Everybody we talked to had a story.
Now, I gotta ask you a question. Rob,
Sure.
Do you remember any of these stories you could relate to the audience of what you've been told that really stuck in your head?
Oh, gosh.
I like putting people on the spot.
Yeah,
I'm going to let you think
yeah,
about
yeah.
that. We have to take a break for on the commercial side for 3 minutes. I'll let you think about that for 3
Sure.
minutes. We'll be
Sure,
back.
I got one.
We'll be back with Rob, World International UFO Explorer. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. We'll be right back, so stay tuned.
When it's Saturday night, I need to blow off some steam. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I've been holding it in since the clock came Monday morning. From the end of the week, I'm about to blow. Breeze walking through the honky tonk like a pack of wolves now. Order up around the shops and it's away we go. Let's throw down, hold down, get down. Order up another round of shots. Run, get drunk, get some, have fun. Get into some trouble, baby, like in a night. I'm a gym, big drinking, big drink, singing la 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 la, dancing machine. Been a hell of a week and I need to blow off some steam. Look at those. Steam for blow up. I got to blow off some steam for blow up. I've been holding it in through the whole work week. Now it's Saturday night and I'm about to blow. So come on now, man, if you play me none of them slow songs. I need boots, bar, burning hell, race and get up and go songs. But give me something hot, just give me all you got.
Captain Paul Watson was a co-founder of the Greenpeace Foundation in 1972 and the founder of Sea Shepherd in 1977. In 2022, he was forced out of Sea Shepherd in a hostile takeover. So, he established the Captain Paul Watson Foundation to carry on the work they've been doing for half a century with the specific strategy of aggressive nonviolence, which means aggressive intervention without killing or injuring anyone. They took the name he created and the logos he designed, but they couldn't take away his life's mission. The foundation will carry on. This summer, with their new ship, the John Paul DeJoria, they intend to intervene against the Icelandic slaughter of endangered fin whales. And in 2024, they plan to be in the Southern Ocean Whale Sanctuary to stop the return of Japanese whalers who will be defying the International Court of Justice. They have one ship, but they need 2 more. Please visit paulwatsonfoundation.org to become a monthly donor. By becoming a monthly donor, you can help grow their Navy and help save our oceans. We don't survive on this planet with dead oceans. If the oceans die, we die. Please visit now www.paulwatsonfoundation.org. If you're not watching us live on YouTube, you're missing a lot. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and become a Night Dreamer. Coming to you live from the Night Dreams Talk Radio studios, it's this.
Just a little background. A megaton is 1 million tons of TNT. So the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima was about 12.5 kilotons or 12.5 thousand tons of TNT. So this weapon that we're talking about today is roughly 1,700 times more powerful.
Only Gary Anderson brings you such explosive content. Who wrote this?
Within 1/1000th of a second, a fireball would form, reaching out for 2 miles in every direction, 4 miles across. Temperatures would rise to 20 million degrees Fahrenheit, and everything would be vaporized.
Nice ray of sunshine you got here, Gary. Anything else?
The blast would produce winds in excess of 650 miles per hour.
Awesome. And now, with probably more of the same, here he is, Gary Anderson!
And we are back. You know, if an event we ever have something like that happen, JC, I'm going to have in my survival kit a bag of marshmallows and a metal stick, and I'm just going to roast marshmallows.
I know you will. I'm going to be probably right there beside you, but I might poke you with the stick when you're not looking.
I might poke you too. With the stick, that is. Anyway, it's one of those nights, isn't it? Now, the Hitman has a great guest coming up, doesn't he?
He does. He's got Martin Eddington coming on, and he's going to be talking about his own personal paranormal experiences. And little tidbit, there was a scary ghost attack.
Oh, wow. My ex-mother-in-law sure gets around everywhere, doesn't she?
She's very well traveled.
I know. She was too when she was living. Well, we're back with Rob Freeman. He's a UFO world explorer. And I put him on a spot. I asked him if he remembered one of the stories that he was told. And did you come up with a good one?
Well, the first thing that came to mind before the commercial break was a story we heard from Sixto Paz Wells. Sixto Paz Wells is a UFO researcher in Lima, Peru. And, we wanted to interview him. We were invited down, and he actually invited us to come to his house, and he doesn't often do that. And we asked him, why are you allowing us to actually come into your house and interview you? And he claimed to receive this information in his automatic writing that we were actually coming down. And he seems to do this automatic writing. He leads expeditions around the world. They've made contact in the deserts around Lima, Peru. In his automatic writing, he's had the exact minute, hour, date and time and so on. He's invited journalists. They've had newspapers that have been there photographing this stuff. And it's in the Spanish-speaking newspapers. I've looked through them all in the archives in Peru and in Lima and so on. And we were interviewing him, and we asked him about some of this stuff. And he says, you know, south of Lima, there's a beach called Playa Yaya. And across the highway from that beach, there's a big electrical plant. I don't know if it's coal-fired or whatever. It's an electrical plant of some kind. And he said that out in the water, there is an actual base. And we're kind of like taking all this with a grain of salt. And, you know, we actually headed to that place, to that beach the next day. And he said, you know, there were campers that were on the beach. And he said, to their astonishment, he said, a bug-style Volkswagen drove out of the water. And I know this sounds incredible and absolute like lunacy, Gary, but this is what he's telling us. And this isn't the only thing that's happened at Playa Yaya. We experienced incredible things ourselves, which we may or may not get into that later. But this Volkswagen came out of the water, drove up onto the beach, and rolled down the window. It was full of earth beings, like earthly looking beings who looked Nordic in sort of, you know, how they looked. And a lot of people say that, you know, ETs that are supposedly running around on Earth do look Nordic and so on. And they asked for directions. And these stunned group of campers gave directions, and this Volkswagen continued on. Now, you know, Sixto Paz Wells is a credible guy. And, you know, if you want to talk about the hitchhiker effect, we interviewed him for, oh gosh, close to an hour, and the kind of stories he's told us in the books he's written. I mean, this is an incredible guy in Lima, Peru. He's well known down there and super credible. We've been on expeditions with him, and we've seen and photographed things on those expeditions, crazy things.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know if you want me to get into the stuff we experienced on the beach.
I want to know. Yes, I want to know.
Okay. So basically, there was three of us, and we had, you know, just arrived in Peru, and here we were set up on the beach. And the first thing we were going to do was do a meditation. And there was Marcus, Liz, and myself, and we didn't have a chair, so, you know, we were parked maybe 50, 60 feet away. They were just going to sit down in the sand, and, you know, I had two phones, one my Canadian phone in my pocket and the other with a Peru SIM card. And I didn't want to hold the phones in my pocket, but I didn't want to sit in the sand with a phone in each back pocket and fill the phones with sand. And I didn't want to hold them. So I said, guys, if you don't mind, you guys do a meditation here. I'll go back in the car and do my own. I did my own, and 20 minutes later, you know, got very relaxed, because we find that when you're more relaxed, you can somehow connect to this phenomenon, and you can interact with it, and you can experience it. And you've just got to get out of that everyday left brain intellectual mind. Anyway, I go over and I see them arguing and fighting. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, we're just at the start of this expedition, and these two are going at it. And I wasn't happy. And I go over and I say, you know, what's going on? And Liz says, Mark abandoned me. And she says, you don't do that on a beach in South America. You know, you never leave a woman alone, period. And Marcus says, that's just not true. That's just not true. And she said, yes, I came out of the meditation and you were gone. You were like 300 feet down the beach. And I asked Marcus, I says, well, tell me what happened as far as you're concerned. And he said, Rob, we came out of the meditation. I looked over at Liz and I said, if you don't mind, I'm just going to go for a walk down the beach. Is that okay? She looked right at him, eyeball to eyeball, and nodded that was okay. So he went for a walk. So, and she says to him, you're lying. And, he says to her, but, this is what I experienced. So right there, I stopped them and I said, look, we've got something strange happening here. We've got two different experiences that have happened simultaneously. And I said, look, nobody's going to leave anybody else. From now on through the expedition, we just stay together and we experience whatever together. So the truth is, Gary, that's what they each experience. They seem to be in two different timelines of some kind. But that was just the start of it. I had all my equipment set up and I have, my cameras. Most of them are daytime or nighttime cameras. But there's one particular camera I had set up. It was a daytime only camera. And it was getting dusk and that camera was becoming no good. So I undid the screw from the bottom. It's a 1/4-inch camera screw, that you have, that tripods have to screw the camera in. It's a standard fitting. I took it out and I was going to change the camera. And we're on a beach of sand and I took the screw in my hand and I thought, my God, don't drop this. You'll never find it again. And I didn't have any extra ones. I had like what would you call it? Maybe a hoodie type sweatshirt, jacket, zipper type thing. And it had a deep pocket. And I took the screw, I put it in the pocket, and I thought, don't even let go of this screw. If you let go, it could fall out. The second I said, don't let go of the screw, it was gone. It's like, where did it go? And I said to Marcus, where's the screw? And he said, don't move your hand. He put his hand in this jacket. There were no holes in it, nothing. The screw disappeared. Now, we call that the pocket portal. Several years later, that screw appeared sitting on top of a box in my room where a pool table is. Nobody in the house even knew I had those kind of screws for my camera stuff. Like, that's all my business. And it's like, that is the screw that was lost on the beach several years before Playa in Peru. So that was just the very start of things that happened that night. I mean, what happened was we saw these lights all of a sudden. They came out of nowhere. We did not see the car arrive, but all of a sudden there were lights behind our car that was about 40 feet over. And we got a little nervous. Like, here we are, just three of us. We hear all these stories about South America and you have to be so careful about everything. And we thought, just, take it easy here. And we're not trying to attract any attention to ourselves or whatever. And before we knew it, and we never saw the car leave, the lights were like 300 feet away. The car lights were there. Like, we were busy filming stuff, so we weren't watching, but we were glancing over every once in a while. We just didn't want to get involved. And the car was in a different spot. And then we thought, okay, something strange is happening here. It's time to go. So we packed up the equipment, we put it in the car, and I promptly, backed up to turn around, and I got stuck. We were on some hard-packed gravel where we were parked on the beach, where maybe there had been a vendor there in previous years or months or whatever, and I had forgot. So when I backed up, I went off the hard gravel right into the soft sand. And, we then called for a tow truck, and the tow truck guy, I think they was to be there at 11 o'clock. And, something like 10:30, we saw lights on the highway of a tow truck. He was shining a searchlight over to us and flashing it back and forth. And, Marcus and I, we started flashing the lights of the car. We were jumping up and down, honking the horn, screaming and yelling, because we thought, there's our tow truck. This tow truck just kept going down the highway, shining lights over to the beach. I mean, it even vaguely lit up the car. It was such a powerful searchlight. He drove all the way down the beach, like along the highway that runs parallel to the beach, like maybe, 600 feet away from us, 500 feet away from us. We thought, what's with this guy? He can't see us. We're flashing the lights. We then called the car rental place and we said, you know, we think your tow truck driver is lost. Can you tell him that that is us right across from the power plant? And we saw him flashing his lights. She said, just a minute, I'm going to get him on the line. She did. She came back on our line and she says, that wasn't your tow truck driver. He's not due there for another 30 minutes. And you know, 30 minutes later, and now during this time, there was another thing that happened, Gary, which is just blew our minds. You know, we wanted to get out of there earlier. We were not comfortable being on a South American beach in the darkness in the middle of nowhere. We wanted to, even though they had the tow truck driver set up for 11, we were looking for other opportunities to get out there earlier, get out of there earlier, and we would just cancel the tow truck. So there was a police car going along the highway with his lights flashing. And I asked Liz, Liz is from South America. She lives in Canada. And she says, oh, they always flash their lights when they're out cruising, just to let people know that they're in the area. So we did the same thing with him. We flashed our lights, jumped up and down. He just kept driving. And then later he drove back. Same thing. We flashed the lights. Nothing. He then turned down the road that comes down to the beach. And parallel to the beach, there is a gravel road. So the gravel road is parallel to the paved road, just, 600 feet over. We're there in the car and outside of the car and so on. And Mark got all this on film. Mark's a documentary guy. He films everything. I film everything in the sky. He films everything on the ground. And, and he does all the interviews and we all participate in that. And this police car was coming down the road right towards us. Like we were right sort of at that 9-degree juncture where you come down the road and then you turn down the gravel road. And I swear, may lightning strike me dead, or may God strike me dead, as I'm telling you the story, if this is not a true story. I'm 100% serious. He comes down the road, literally within 20 feet of us, and we're thinking, great, maybe he can call a tow truck from a nearby village and we can get out of here quickly. We were nervous. He comes down, we're thinking he's going to pull into right where we are, and he continues around and turns left and continues away, just kind of looking through us, not at us. It's like, what do we have to do to get a police officer's attention here? Stab somebody? And, we couldn't believe it. It was like we were not there.
Could you have been in between dimensions?
Yes. Yes, and this is what Sixto Paz Wells talked about. He said, Robin Marcus, he says, I've experienced many incredible things and you will too. He said, I have been seen places like by location and people have talked to me and yet I have no recollection of that. He said, I can see people, I've talked to them and they have no recollection of that. It's like parallel dimensions. It's like bilocation. And so, Gary, the situation we had that night is we could see him somehow in a parallel dimension in the same spot of the earth, but he could not see us. The same thing with that tow truck driver. He could not see us. We could see him. And then finally, there was lots of other stuff happen. I mean, the actual sky watching, we got a lot of stuff with the cameras as well. We had strange lights coming out of the ocean that we filmed. We had strange lights in the cliff. We had a light almost being like thrown over the cliff. We did the calculation and it did not increase in speed. Like, I learned in physics in high school that there's an acceleration of, 9.8 meters per second per second?
Yeah.
In other words, when you throw something over a cliff, it accelerates until it reaches a velocity that's equal to the resistance of the air. In other words, it reaches a final terminal velocity because of the air resistance that it's hitting. But that item should have accelerated, and we blew it up, we counted the frames, we measured the distance. It did not accelerate. it went all the way from the top of the cliff down into the water at a constant speed. How is that possible, Gary? But, anyway, so at 11 o'clock, as promised by the car rental lady, our tow truck driver arrived and all the craziness ended. That was it for the night. So it was one thing after another that happened that night. And that's when we really got introduced to this world of cool high strangeness, as we call it. And, we've had so many other things happen, but it all started that night. It started there, and it was a result of the day before in our interview with the famous Sixto Paz Wells. And he told us of many other things that can happen. And he said, be prepared for anything in this interdimensional stuff, in this timeline stuff. And, there's been many other things we've experienced around timelines as well, but we just take it in stride now. And honestly, we kind of like to have other witnesses there with us so that we don't kind of feel ourselves that we're crazy. Sometimes you might have something happen and, well, was that real for me, or was I somehow too tired and maybe I'm daydreaming or something, some weird thing happening psychologically. But Marcus and I always like to witness this stuff together so that we keep each other sane.
Yeah.
The whole sanity thing.
I have one for you real quick. Years ago, I love taking pictures. Besides talking, I've been an avid photographer and been in various publications in the past. But I wanted to go up to a place called Mount Rainier, a waterfall, to take some pictures. And I had my two sons with me, and we were driving on this road going to Mount Rainier, Clearview area. And there was this diner. And my kid says, stop. They have hamburger and a pop for $1. A big, sign up by the side of the road. So, I'm going to do what my kids are saying because they're screaming, I'm hungry. So we go in there. And the first thing I noticed, all the cars in the parking lot were like 20 years old. And we went in there and all the people were dressed like my grandmother would dress at that time, 20 years in the past. And the people were gawking at us and staring at us. And I felt so uncomfortable. And after we left, we went and took my pictures. A week later, I wanted to go back up there again and get some more pictures because it was just such a beautiful area. And my kids wanted to go because they liked those hamburgers in that cafe. So we're driving down that same road. It's the only road going there. And I couldn't find the cafe. And we went up and down that road, Rob, 3-4 times. It wasn't. No, but it wasn't there.
They had torn it down. Like, you were in another timeline.
That's
it was
right.
Gone now, right?
Yeah. I stopped at a little store and I said, we got a hamburger at that a place down the road from here. And they said that place burnt down years ago.
Wow. That's an incredible story, Gary.
Yeah. So I do believe there is timelines and you can accidentally go into it. What happens if we would have stayed there or that timeline would have closed? I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
Well, I don't know, but we have been into these timelines and it seems that we make it back safely every time. But that is a question. Like, I would never want to get caught. We all have friends and family and colleagues in this one that we enjoy interacting with. And, I honestly, I don't mind traveling to these timelines by accident or however it happens, but I would never want to get caught one and have to restart my life all over in that timeline.
Yeah, especially that older. But you could become rich because then you'd know how the stock market was going, all that. Wow. But here's the thing. Also, our time is really winding down. Every time you're on it goes by so fast. What happened in Italy?
Yeah, we were there last, I guess it was the end of summer of last year. And there was a few things that happened. On the very last night, we were up on one of the mountains and we were staying at a lodge. I guess I can relate to my experience. And I didn't want to take all my equipment up there. We were just going to hike up there, all of us that were together, people we had met in Italy, fantastic people, Felipe and so on, and Felice and so on. And all I had was my iPhone, Gary. And I looked at it, Marcus was calling for me to come. I looked at my phone. I only had maybe, 20% power. And I thought, should I go all the way up to my room and keep everybody waiting? No, I'll be fine with 20%. And, we hike up there, and I go to take my camera out just to film around when we got to the top. And as I looked at my phone and the screen, all of a sudden it went out, and I saw the little wheel turning that, the phone is winding down because the battery's dead. It's closing the software, right? And I made a joke. I wasn't serious. And I said, okay, you guys, I says, you can show up now. My phone's dead. I can't take any pictures or video. And I kind of laughed. I wasn't really serious. I was making a big joke. And I turned and looked towards our group, and across at the other mountain, halfway down, I saw a classic saucer going across the sky. And I took a double take, and I thought, is this for real? And I thought, I can't even film it. I don't have my WMD, my weapon of mass detection. I don't have that equipment with me. My simple phone is gone dead. And I told everybody about what happened. We were all excited. And I said, wouldn't it be funny? And again, I'm making a joke. I said, wouldn't it be funny if my phone comes back on again when we get back down to the lodge? And I wasn't really serious. I just thought it would be funny, but it's not going to happen. Why would that happen? And so, we hiked back down to the lodge, and the way the lodge is they have this room where you put all your boots. When you're hiking, you can get mud in your boots. The cows, it's free range, so you can accidentally walk in a cow patty and, track that into the lodge. So they want all the boots and footwear kept in this one room right by the door where you come in. It's safe. And then you go around the lodge either in slippers or other shoes that you brought for the interior. Anyway, so I went to sit down on the bench, and I had my phone in my back pocket. And out of habit, I pull the phone out so I don't sit on it and break it. I grabbed the phone, and of course, I've got the habit of looking at the phone. I grabbed the phone, and it's on with like 5 or 10% power. And it's like, what? And it actually fulfilled what I had just said in the joke. My phone was back on. So yeah, it was funny that it came back on. I tell Marcus about this, and literally a minute or two later, I'm going with the rest of the group to the dining room, which is right there as well. He stayed back with, I think it was either Felipe or Felice. And they're looking out the window of that room at the end of that very same room. And what do they see? They see that same saucer, a craft with the dome on the top, going across the mountain partway down also. They both saw it. Wow. They both saw the same one. So, I rest my case. That, more strange stuff that happened. And that's just a fraction of the stuff we've experienced. This is why, Gary, when we come back to our hometowns and you get back to the humdrum stuff of everyday living, honestly, it's kind of boring. And,
yeah.
we look so forward to getting out on these expeditions because we know stuff's going to happen. We keep an open mind, and if something doesn't happen, it's disappointing, but we've never been on an expedition where there wasn't some or more things that were happening which just defy science. They defy physics.
Now, Rob,
they're like impossible.
Rob, we're out of time here. Now, do you have a website or anything you want to share? Anything? Now's the time to do it, my friend.
Well, it's usually Marcus that does that, but I've got my notes here. He says that we're currently promoting our Making Contact Messages from the Andes. It's a documentary with Ricardo Gonzalez. We spent 18 days with him in Peru and Chile. And along with him, Paola Harris. Everybody knows Paola Harris. She was with us. And Giorgio Piacenza. It's hard for me to say that last name. And they're both, Paola is a photojournalist. Giorgio is a ufologist as well as Paola. And so we're promoting that. We do have our Making Contact documentary on Tubi. You just go on there and search. That's a free website. You can go on there and search Making Contact is the very first one that comes up. And you can see season 1, episodes 1, 2, 3 on that one. And, Mark's got other stuff in the works. You can go to our YouTube channel, Rob Freeman UFO World Explorer. You can go to our Facebook page, Rob Freeman UFO World Explorer. And, beyond that, I don't know what Mark's got. I know he's got Twitter and other things, but he's quite involved with that. And he wasn't able to be with us here tonight. Unfortunately, the internet connection down in Bogota, Colombia wasn't very good. I know he's listening live for us here, but we did a test and the internet connection wasn't very good. So, it's just me tonight, and we would love to be back on the show with you again, Gary, another time.
Yeah, we'll make that happen too when we get both of you back on, because people really liked both of you on, and I tell you, I learn more every time I talk to you. So again, I just want you to have a great weekend. And get a hold of us when you make that trip and let us know how everything's going, will you?
Absolutely. I had more things to talk about, of course, but we'll save it for next time, and we're going to get back in touch with you. And we really appreciate the fact that you had me back again.
Okay, my friend, you take care.
You too, Gary.
Well, JC, the Hitman is at 5 p.m. Sunday, Pacific West Coast time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And JC, who is his guest?
His guest is going to be Martin Eddington, and he's going to be talking about his own personal paranormal experiences throughout his life, Martin is. So it's going to be fascinating.
Okay, well, to next Wednesday, everybody have a good one. I'll catch you on the other side of the campground. Maybe.
From Paul Wallace, author of the best-selling trilogy Escaping from Eden, The Scars of Eden, and Echoes of Eden, comes The Eden Conspiracy, Ancient Memories of E.T. Contact and the Bible Before God. The Eden Conspiracy explores evidence of ancient E.T. contact in the Bible's deep past, along with forgotten secrets about human progress, political power, emotional intelligence, and human potential. The Eden Conspiracy will take you around the world, from Australia to Brazil, Guatemala, Mexico, Ghana, Kenya, Italy, Scotland, England, Israel, Palestine, and ancient Sumeria. Archaeological sites in the Levant reveal clues of ancient experiences of close encounters. Meet with world-class scholars and senior figures in military intelligence whose privileged information concerns the hidden layers of covert government in the deep past and in the present day. What was the Bible before it became a book about God? What was it our ancestors wanted us to know? Can we recover their wisdom and build a better future? Why was this layer of information translated out of the Bible? Who made the changes, and with what agenda? And what does any of this have to do with ETs? Eric von Daniken, author of Chariots of the Gods, says, quote, Paul Wallace is one of my best colleagues. Paul has a way of speaking that everyone can understand. I have full respect for him. Get your copy of The Eden Conspiracy by Paul Wallace. Available now at Amazon in paperback or